Hey, budget gardeners, Vita Loca here.
Hi, it's Carol from Cape Cod Cottage Garden.
And join us today as we share with you our top 10 ways of saving money while gardening.
So Vita and I got together and we decided to share some tips on how to save money while gardening. We want gardening to be accessible to everyone. We want everybody to jump in and give it a try, whether it's on a bigger scale or a small scale, just jump in. So I was going to start with my first tip for saving money is about grow seeds. When you go to the nursery, the plants are very expensive. If you want to fill your pots with annuals, whatever, it can really add up. Seeds are relatively inexpensive. And there's a couple of ways you can do it. Obviously, the most inexpensive way to do it is just a direct sow. You can just throw your seeds in the ground. There's like zinnias and stuff do very well, just putting them directly in the soil and they'll come up. So another way you can do it is called winter sowing. And that is basically sowing your seeds outside during the winter in some kind of jug, a clear jug or a semi-clear jug, like a milk jug. I'm sure you could Google it and see how easy it is to do. But you basically just put soil in a jug, put it out in the winter, the regular rain and stuff getting in the drop, and you'll grow your seeds. And then if you really want to get into it, you find this is something I'm going to do is that you can invest in having some grow lights in your house. Now, there are budget ways to do this. When I first started, I didn't know any better, and I went out and I bought this Spider Farmer light that costs over $100. I don't know what I was thinking. I quickly learned that you can grow absolutely easily with just plain old shop lights. They can you can get six shop lights for about $45. So that's what I've done mostly here. And this is what I grew. All three or 400 plants that I grew last year, I used this. So that's a great way to save money.
Carol, those are awesome tips. I love it. And it's inspiring me because, my channel name has the word budget in it, and gardening is so expensive. So wonderful tips there. And do
Mhm.
you mind if I go ahead and maybe share one of my
Yeah, go ahead.
tips? Okay,
Yes.
awesome. So one of my tips is Facebook Marketplace. I like to check out the Facebook Marketplace or even Craigslist. A lot of times people are selling things at a very decent price. It could be hardscape for your yard. There can be different pots. Sometimes you can even find plants. Because I have a backyard plant nursery, I even list my plants on sale for on Facebook Marketplace, and I've had so many people reach out that way. So you can definitely find a lot of gardening related things out on Marketplace. So definitely check that out. It's a great way to save money. And a lot of times people are giving away gardening related things for close to nothing.
Yeah, and when you told me that the other day, I was like, that was great. I never even thought of that. Because certainly I always have extra plants. I do give them away to friends and family, but that's a great tip. So my other thing is when I first started, I made all of the mistakes you can make. Like I went out and I bought bags and bags of compost. Well, I quickly learned that in my 22 by 22 garden, it was really expensive to fill those garden beds. So I right away decided to start a compost bin. And a compost bin can be anything. It doesn't have to be fancy. Like when I was growing up, my dad had compost pile, and it was just basically a pile in the backyard that he just put all his, yards waste and everything in, and it was fantastic. I remember my mom using that pile for her garden beds. It was great. What I ended up doing is very cheaply, I got pallets free. People get rid of them all the time. And we made my Mr. Hubby made it for me really a pallet compost bed. And we just lined it with some leftover chicken wire I had. And it's been fantastic. And I actually have a system that has like two, so I can put stuff, start it in one bin, and as it breaks down, I move it to the next bin. But one tip about the composting is you want to make sure you cut everything up pretty small so it just breaks down quicker.
Very cool. And composting is awesome. I think that's
Yeah.
great. And what I like about it is even if you don't have a very big yard, you can do composting like in a trash can or something like that. So wonderful tip there, Carol. I don't know about you, but I love looking for end of season sales. A lot of times stores want to mark down their pots, they want to mark down different plants, and you can get some really good deals. So a lot of times I will just check out all the different stores, buy some plants. But the big tip that I want to give on that one is when it comes to plants, you want to make sure you get them in the ground as soon as possible because here where we live, right in New England, we have to
Mhm.
get the plants in the ground so that the plants can establish a good root system. So, talk to me. What else do you have for tips, Carol?
So the other thing I was thinking about, I have several large planters in my yard. They're probably like 28, 30-inch wide planters. And when I go to fill those, it's costly. Potting mix is expensive. So what I usually do, I don't do it every year, but like every other year, I'll take out like 2/3 of the soil, but I'll leave that bottom third in the bottom of it, and I'll just put a little biotone or something to beef it up a little, and then I add my new soil to plant my plants. One thing I see people do is they'll put like cans or rocks, like a big layer of can, and it's really not a good idea to do that. I mean, people think they're saving money, but all they're doing is making that water and all those nutrients just run right out of their plants. Even though, and the other thing about using just the topsoil new is most plants are shallow rooted. They don't need that deep, deep container, but don't put rocks or cans in the bottom. Fill it with soil, even if it's last year's soil is better than cans and rocks. So that's
You are
my tip
so,
for that.
you are so right, Carol. I remember when I was first into gardening, I used to do that. I used to take like pots and put them inside those big containers. And you're totally right. It's not the way to go. So I like your advice on how to save money, but how to do it right.
Yep, we've all done it. So what do you have for us next, Vita?
All right. So the next one that I have for how to save money is dividing your plants, dividing your perennials. It's so funny because I share that with a lot of people, and they say to me they had no idea that you could do that. Absolutely. Even when you're buying plants in the store, look for the pot that has multiple plants in it. And it's like instant free plants. But then plants actually do better when you divide them in your landscape. They thrive. And different plants should be divided at different times of the year. So that's something to keep in mind. Typically, when it comes to dividing our plants, one of the tips I have is plants that bloom in the spring, you would want to divide them in the fall. And plants that bloom in the fall, you want to divide those in the spring. But it's a great way to increase your stock in the plants. And if you end up with too many plants, I'm sure you can give them away, or even in my case, sell them in my backyard nursery, but it's definitely healthier for the plants to divide them every so often. So that's my big tip is dividing your plants.
That is a great tip. And as you know, my garden here is only 2 years old. I started with a blank slate. So
Mhm.
all my plants that I put in, some of them are coming on 3 years. And I notice this is going to be my big year to divide some of those perennials and grow my plant base just for my own yard, which is fantastic. I love that. I'm going to have to go to you to get more help on that though.
Yeah, oh, definitely. We are definitely getting together this year. We live
Oh,
so close
yes.
to
You're
each
going to be
other.
down here dividing my plants for me.
That's
For
awesome.
sure.
For sure, definitely. So, Carol, what else do you have? I'm sure you have other tips you want to share with us.
So my other tip is if you are going to use a growing room situation, you're going to have to use fertilizer to feed your plants. I don't want to get too much into detail because that's not what this video is about. But when you're starting your plants, if you're using a seed starting mix, it doesn't have nutrients in it. I use something like that. This is a great fertilizer. It's expensive, but a little bit goes a long way because you dilute it a lot. So my tip with that is once you bottom water your plants, give it 20 minutes or so, let the liquid soak up, and whatever's left in the bottom of your tray, like for instance, your tray, this one has holes in it, so obviously you wouldn't do it with this, but you could just dump the remaining water that has fertilizer into a bucket and then use it to water the rest of your plants. So that way you stretch it a long way because this is quite expensive, but it works. It's a miracle. This stuff, you really need it.
Great tip. I love that. And that is important is watering those plants from underneath. But you're right. A lot of times we have all that excess water and what are we going to do with it? So I love that tip.
Yeah.
And, one of the tips that I just thought about that I wanted to share was having to do with collecting seeds. I love collecting seeds from annuals, from perennials. I really haven't done a lot of collecting seeds from my vegetable plants, but I do want to do that this year. But, seed prices, just like everything else, is going up. And it's very expensive. A lot of times you buy a packet of seeds and you might only get a handful of seeds in there. But when you grow your own plants and you collect your own seeds, you can end up with a ton of seeds that way.
Mhm.
One little thing that I've learned though when it comes to collecting your seeds is You want to make sure you're storing them properly. You don't want to store any wet seeds, otherwise they can rot. And then also the seeds that you collect, depending on the variety, they might not come true to the actual plant. So that's something to keep in mind. And I'm typically okay with that because I'm just collecting seeds for the purpose of growing plants to have in my own yard. But that's something that you want to keep in mind. So, there's a lot of, and I won't go into too much detail, but when it comes to like hybrid plants versus open pollinated plants, there's a lot of information you can find about when you're collecting your seeds. But absolutely, one huge tip is collect seeds from your plants.
And that's exactly what I did this year after watching your videos, Vita.
That's
I went out, I
awesome.
said, I'm going to try this. So I just took a look at my seeds that I collected the other day and they all look really good, healthy, and viable. So I'm really excited to try some of those.
Very
Don't go
cool.
below it. Yeah.
That's awesome, Carol. I'm glad to hear that. Very exciting. I love that we got together to share our tips. Is there any other tips that you can think of? I might have one other one, but I wanted to make sure I asked
Yeah.
you.
There was so much I wanted to talk about, but once you get started talking, it right out as usual, my brain is like a sieve. But the other thing you can do instead of going out and buying all these expensive, I did go out and buy some nice plants now that my containers to planting now that I know I'm going to do this year after year because I am completely addicted. But if you're just starting out, you can use yogurt containers, just put holes in the bottom or anything like this to start your plants in. These, I use these. These I think I got from like BJ's or something and had like something in it. And I use
Oh,
these as little
yeah.
humidity domes.
That's
So it's
perfect.
great.
I
Yeah.
love that.
There's
That's
lots of stuff around the house that you already have that you can use.
perfect tips. Totally. I love that. And you're right. I mean, I think a lot of times people think that gardening has to be very expensive. It doesn't have to
Right.
be. The upfront cost might cost a little bit of money for sure, but if you just keep on going with it and keep on gardening, you can actually save in a lot of different ways.
And especially when it comes to vegetables, if you're into vegetable gardens, we ate out of my garden last year all summer long. And we have, on Cape, we have tons of company. I can't tell you how many people I fed out of my garden. And it's so good and it's so nutrient dense. And you can get varieties that you can't buy in the grocery store. In the grocery store, things are put on the shelf and it's just for shelf life. They're just growing for shelf life. But when you grow in your own garden, it's really amazing.
It is. You're right. And you were talking about like growing your own plants, like your tomato plants or cucumber plants. And that got me thinking when I was talking about Facebook Marketplace earlier. I've even
Mhm.
seen on Marketplace people list like that they planted way too many tomato plants and they want to give them away, for free or at a
Mhm.
very low cost. So that's another place. And also with tomatoes, a lot of times at the end of the season, I don't know about you, but like all of a sudden I have too much of something, like too many tomatoes or too many green beans. And oftentimes on Marketplace, you can even find people selling tomatoes at a very cheap cost. If
Mhm.
especially, let's say you didn't have any tomato plants or you don't have enough space in your yard, you can use Marketplace to look for something like tomatoes that someone's selling for the purpose of canning them. So lots of options out there for saving money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
Problem.
So, Vita, your channel is called Budget Gardening. Any more tips for us?
Oh, awesome. Yeah, Carol, I just have one more. Basically, when it comes to saving a lot of money, what I like to do is overwinter a lot of plants in my garage or in my basement. And that includes geraniums. Geraniums are very expensive. I have been able to start geraniums from seed. But one method I love to do is to overwinter the geraniums. And you can overwinter there a bunch of different ways. And you can look it up on the internet. But one way that I like to do it is overwintering them bare root. And then also dahlias can be very expensive. And rather than buying them year after year, and I know you've done this as well, you can
Mhm.
overwinter your dahlia tubers. And especially where we live, we can't keep our dahlias in the ground, right? So we have to store them, dig them up and store them. And this applies with a lot of other plants. And it's going to vary from zone to zone, but specifically in our area where we live, Carol, we want to like overwinter the calla lilies, the canna lilies,
Mhm.
the ranunculus, lots of different types of bulbs, begonias, tuberous begonias. So there's a lot of information out there that shows you how to overwinter those types of plants, but that's a huge way to save money. Oh, elephant ear. I don't have that plant, but I think you had that in your
I
garden.
do. I
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
So
Several of them actually. I
that's
loved those
awesome.
this year.
Oh, they were
Yeah.
beautiful. I remember seeing them in your video.
Hmm.
So, and caladiums, the list goes on. So you can definitely save a lot of money by overwintering your corms, your tubers, your bulbs. So definitely, that's something for viewers to look into.
But one word of caution, I can speak from experience.
Yeah.
Dahlias addicting.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
they're expensive. But I
Very.
started last year with my dahlias. I just got them at like Home Depot or something. And I
Hmm.
started with I started with three different plants. And I ended up at the end, I had one plant that had like literally 12, 13, 14, I can't remember, tubers on it.
That's
So think of,
amazing.
I mean, it might be expensive up front, but for what you get, if you take care of, if you pull them, some people don't pull them. I do,
Right.
obviously. So,
You're right though.
right.
Totally. If you take care of them, you can have a ton of plants that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's addictive.
It is. I don't even want to look at what I bought this year.
Yeah.
It wasn't very budget friendly, I'll tell
No.
you that.
Well, we all have to start somewhere, right, Carol?
Exactly, exactly. But if you save other ways, then maybe you can splurge a little bit on something you really love. Like for me, it's the
Exactly.
dahlias.
That's right. Totally. And I apologize. I have three cats, so it's bound to happen. One cat wanted to make an appearance, but um,
Oh yeah.
it's so funny. I feel like we've known each other forever. When we
Mm.
had our first call, right? Didn't we talk like 2.5 hours?
Yes, laughing the whole time.
My
Yes.
goodness. It's
We're
like I feel
kindred
like
spirits.
I feel like we've known each other forever, and I can't wait to
Uh,
meet you in person. But I'm so glad that we got to get together this way. And I have people that have subscribed to my channel, and I absolutely, if they haven't already, I want them to subscribe to your channel. And I will be sure to put a link to your channel in the description below. And so please definitely subscribe to Carol's channel. She has a beautiful garden. She has a wealth of knowledge.
Well, absolutely. And I feel the same, Vita. I adore you and you. And the thing with us is like we should mention that we're in different zones a little bit. You're in
Right.
5
That's
and
right.
I'm
Yeah.
in 7.
Yes, right.
So it's a little, and I also, my garden is mostly all sun and yours is mostly all shade. So
Exactly.
we can, bounce ideas off of each other for the parts. Like I don't really know too much about shade gardening. So I go to you and vice versa. I mean, obviously you have, the other thing that's different is you have 30 years of experience. And this is literally, I mean, I've been gardening for a while, but on this scale, I've only been doing it for 2 years on this scale with
Well,
the vegetables.
but
Yeah.
you have so much to share, and
Thank you.
yeah, and I
Hey,
love your garden. I just adore it. I love your vegetable garden. And
thank you.
when we talked for the 2.5 hours the other day, I was talking about like curly hair versus straight hair, and it's the same thing with gardening. Some of us have big gardens, some of us have smaller gardens, some of
Mhm.
us have sunny gardens, some of us have shadier gardens. But
Mhm.
gardening is gardening. Like we all can learn from each other, right? And that's what I love
Absolutely.
about it. And I think that's one of the reasons we both probably enjoy making our videos for our YouTube channel is to
Definitely.
share that knowledge and also learn from others.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. 100%.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, Carol. I enjoyed making this video with you.
Me too. I loved it. We had a great time. And I knew we would after our talks on the call, after our previous Zoom call that lasted hours and hours of giggling.
Absolutely. So we'll have to make another video. We'll have to share it with our subscribers, and maybe we
Definitely.
can do some garden tours together.
I would love that. So, and obviously, Vita, you have a wealth of knowledge. Your plants in your garden is gorgeous. So I would really
Thank
love if
you.
all my subscribers would pop on over and take a look at her channel and like and subscribe. I'll put the link obviously in the bottom. And it's been a pleasure. I know I personally have learned so much from you.
And same here. And we're going to keep on learning from each other.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Well, happy gardening, and I will see you in our next video.
Absolutely.
All
This
right,
was so fun.
thank
Bye-bye.
you. Make it a great day with gardening. Bye. Hey, budget gardeners, Vita Loca here.
See, I already messed it up.
And then
I
I
didn't
figured that,
think you
and then
were
and then I
I thought
figured
you were going to say something else. I'm sorry.
I
Let's
usually do. So let's do it again.
we're never going to get through this, Vita.
What do you
Perfect.
think? Do you
Right?
like that?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Where did my Zoom go? Hold on.
Right? Easy. The second way, if you want to, gonna have to edit that.
That's all right.
Vita, it's been so lovely. Thanks so much. I'm so glad we did this.
Me too. And happy gardening.
You, I just messed it all up.
That's all right.
Edit.